joined by Dr. Eduardo Corassa today. He's a frugivore, a nutritionist, a health and nutrition coach from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and he's dialed in from all the way over there today. I just love the fact that we have guests from all over the world. It's incredible. How are you?
Doing pretty good. When you are healthy, it's easy to be really good every single day. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, you've got such an amazing story, and we're going to be talking about what it means to be a frugivore. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, yeah, right.
And we're going to talk about raw veganism and also fasting. But just to begin, you started out as a world champion, like video gamer.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I was pretty good with video games back in the days when I was growing up, and always sedentary, eating a lot of junk food. So I was really unhealthy, really sick. But we don't know, right? Because usually everybody lives not a perfect lifestyle. So everybody has symptoms and diseases, but small, minor ones. I was a little bit sicker than the usual, but when I was 17, I started playing professionally and traveling all around the world to compete in Counter Strike. It's like one of the most played computer games out there. So uh, we were like kids, 17-year old, five of us traveling because it was a team traveling all around the world to compete and making money. You don't know that you have to take care of your health because of your health, but also because of your work. Because back then I couldn't realize that a computer professional gamer could be affected by what he was eating and what he was doing in the daily life. So I started realizing that I was not playing really good when I was 20 as I was doing when I was 17 because I was eating junk food and staying all night long playing and things like that. So when I realized the connection with lifestyle and the capacity to play my best because it was my work. What kid doesn't want at 17 to travel everywhere in every country to, make
Yeah.
out of it? It was my dream. So I didn't want to lose my job and I started like making small changes in lifestyle. The ones that I could realize, that are ones that I could, grasp. But I continued to get worse, although I was lifting weights, losing weight and exercising every day, stop smoking, stop drinking. But still, I knew there was more. And I was going to a lot of medical doctors, some of the best ones in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, where I lived. And they were all about pills and surgery. And I was like,
Mhm.
pills are not working and I'm only 21, so it doesn't sound right. So and they were looking really unhealthy. They were like obese, like a really unhealthy face. And I was like, no, this can't be it. And they were like, surgeries will only help to fix a little bit of the issue, but you were born with it. So your back is already like herniated disc, and my nose, I had like, I couldn't even breathe through one of the nostrils already. And then I found I was looking for it, and I was like exercising every day, trying to change my diet, lifestyle, but I didn't have any good really info, right? And then I saw on news raw food, Demi Moore raw food diet. And I was like, what raw food diet? What this is? And I typed on Google, and it was like a lot of people. I hear from cancer, I hear from heart disease, diabetes, raw foods, raw fruits, raw foods. And I was like, yeah, 700,000 species on the planet only lives on raw food. Human beings have been cooking for like 10,000 years, like maybe for sure a little bit more than that. But we didn't have the internet back then, right? So the trend didn't went viral like since we started,
Yeah.
so, and it was a lot more hard to cook because we invented pans, pots, and utensils in general like 5,000 years ago. So, how do you cook potatoes or beans and rice without a pot or pan? Like you burn it to ashes
Yeah.
and eat it. So I just realized that, this makes a lot of sense. And I already tried every allopathic medicine treatment or every natural medicine treatment. I just didn't went for surgery because, you know, I thought it was too early for me to, go into surgery with having only 22 years of age. And then because my search kept going for a few years, right, from 20 to 22. And then I started like trying to eat fruits and vegetables primarily, and it was like in 3 days I was completely different person. My allergies, my respiratory problems, everything went away, and I could think clearly. I could exercise a lot better. I was like, it was like Superman, but without pills
Wow.
and without any drugs. And I was like, whoa, what did I find? It was like, and but I kept going without too much information. It was hard, like I tried to eat a raw sweet potato, like it
Yeah.
just, you don't know anything, never, nobody ever taught you about raw food. So
No. And
I
it's
I
amazing at that age as well. I mean, you were still pretty young.
Yeah, but I was pretty sick. I was already diabetic, about to do two surgeries, a lot of immune issues, allergy issues, respiratory issues like rhinitis, pharyngitis, laryngitis, you know, all inflammations, but still. And then I started like I found a guy called Douglas Graham, Doug Graham, the author of the 1810 diet. He already lives like this way for 40 years now. And then I was like, oh, this old man talking about like, we're anthropoid primates. We share 99.3% of our DNA with the bonobo, the one of the chimpanzees, so it all made sense to me. And fruit was so obvious. The food already comes cooked because it's already flavored and already digestible, already like soft, so we can eat it. Complex carbs like rice, beans, potatoes, you have to cook it. You have to salt it because there's no flavor. It's tasteless. So it made so much sense to me. Eat more fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And then I just start doing it, and I just start thriving it. And then after 6 months, I still knew I grew up as a kid eating a lot of junk food. So natural foods like fruits, vegetables, I couldn't eat it. I didn't have taste for it. But
Mm,
chocolates, really, fried food, cooked food with a lot of salt, I could eat it. So I noticed it that I didn't have a natural palate since I was young. So, and I started reading what we call the science of health, like a science, like a medicine model that is called natural hygiene. So natural hygiene proposes that life health is produced by healthful living. You can't buy health. You have to build it through everyday life practice through healthful living. So these guys were actually American medical doctors back in the 800s that just realized that exercise, diet, sunshine, time to sleep, time to eat at night, all these things were the real medicine. But back then they didn't have any scientific data to back it up. So when they suggested, they were seen as quacks and
yeah.
completely ostracized. Yeah, but nowadays the quacks have like, discovered the whole science because nowadays intermittent fasting, we hygienists we're talking about intermittent fasting 200 years ago, like, and now it's like intermittent fasting, like
Yeah. It's all trendy.
so trendy. So they when I found out natural hygiene through Doug Graham, and I was like, so, and one of the main natural hygiene pioneers were called Dr. Herbert Shelton, a guy from Texas, that He supervised 40,000 water fasts during his life. He was the greatest supervisor, fasting supervisor of a whole human history. And he wrote like 50 books. He was like such a prolific writer. And I came across a book called Fasting Can Save Your Life from Herbert Chilton. And I read the book and I was sold, like, like in the first few pages, I was like, I need a fast. This is going to help me out. And I was already doing a frugivore diet, a natural hygiene diet for six months. And then I started what I thought it was going to be a 20-day water fast because the diet made all my symptoms go away, but I could still feel my back like broken on the inside because of the herniated disc. And I had a lot of back pain issues since I was young. So it's like what we call in hygiene the limitation of matter. If you cut your hand, it regenerates. It doesn't cure. It's actually regeneration, the right term. But if you cut your hand off, it doesn't grow one back. But if you do that with a salamander, they are called, the most famous ones are axolots. They use them in the lab, in several labs throughout the world, to try to identify the genes that we lost from reptiles to mammals that actually could regenerate limbs and more, even more than that. So the limitation of matter in hygiene suggests that the more complex the organism is, the less regeneration it's capable of. So I changed the diet, I changed the lifestyle, but it didn't raise the 22 years of soda, junk food, and sedentary, not getting enough sunshine, etc. So I started doing my 24-day water fast to see what else could I get better with my health. And it was like, it was such a ride. I fasted at home. I don't recommend it because even in US, you have True North Health Center. You ever heard of
Um, no, don't think
it?
so.
It's the most famous fasting center in the world. It's located in California. It's called True North. They actually appear even in a Netflix series. It was Unwell, the fasting series that appeared there. They're quite famous, True North. So they have medical supervision fasting, right? So
Yeah.
I did it at home. I couldn't, go to the US back then. I didn't have the. I could ask my parents, but they were going to say no for sure. Like give me money to go to the West to fast for like 20 days on water. Like
No.
and yeah, and I quitted my job back then to because I couldn't play Counter Strike professionally anymore. So I had to do it. So I did it at home. I don't recommend it, but it was like such an amazing ride. I could feel like I had like a because I used to play several hours per day with a mouse. I had like a little bit of arthritis already on my hands. And in the 7 day of the water fast, I could feel the blood and the inflammation happening in the hand here for a couple days. And then it healed completely. What I was feeling of pain for like several years, it just went away. I was like, what? Now I know the inflammation is a repairing process, right? That sends blood to the place so it gets nutrients there so you can kill the bad cells, what we call apoptosis, and can restore new cells called causes mitogenesis. I can use the scientific terms or I can use more simple terms, but still. And the hand like got healed. And I was feeling a lot of other, a lot of other sites that I had issues back then. It was like inflamed. And then, I had sore throats and inflamed throats for like years. And then I never had it anymore. It's been 16 years without any day of, you know, even sneezing. It's really hard to sneeze nowadays. You have to get me into a closed place for too long with somebody smoking by my side. And even then, it's just really quick. It's not like back then when I had terrible allergies, terrible mucus, etc. So it was like such a blessing. I could see my, the the joints were getting, less swollen, more flexible. My brain, like I know nowadays because I'm a researcher. I wrote, like, I'm writing my 10th book. I have a TED talk. I dedicated my life to study the science, to educate people. But back then, I was like really amazed. Wow, my eyes are getting clear. My skin, I'm
Mm.
feeling more younger. Like I was amazed because I didn't know what fasting was back then. And then I did. I broke on my 24 days, and it was. I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm a completely scientific guy. Like I see science. I see things too much rational. But during the fast, after the 20 day, I it was like something, the most spiritual thing I ever felt. It was like my mind and my spirit talking together, or my mind and my body. It was like two separate things. I think maybe now it's the communication from the microbiota to the brain. I don't know, but it was like my body talking to me. Like, I have waited since you were 2 years of age, so you could stop eating, so I could have a rest and
Mm.
repair. And now we know that fasting actually turns on repairing mechanisms, right? So through FOXO, AMPK, sirtuins, it's a lot of science stuff. But I could feel like he was happy. It was like my body was happy and telling
Mm.
my mind or my spirit, my soul, I don't know. And it was like I started crying. Like I cried for a few days actually. It was like such a relief, such a cure, it was unexplainable, but it was like the best thing I ever felt. So I swear to myself at that day that I was, live my life to promote natural hygiene, the science of health, that it's so simple but so based in science that it's so simple that people cannot even realize that our bodies are actually regenerating machines, repairing
Mm.
machines. It's made to maintain homeostasis. You just have to provide the biological needs that we have provided for millions of years since the beginning of time in history. Like fungi, the first organisms in planet Earth, what we call prokaryotes. I think it's the same word in English, and eukaryotes, but more complex cells and more simple cells. Like maybe 1 billion years before human beings, these small organisms in planet Earth already had the fasting mechanism and the mitogenesis mechanism. When you eat, you grow. When you fast, you enter in repair and conservation mode. So we share this fasting capacity and all these biological necessities like sunshine, air, the food with the adequate amount of nutrients with every kind of species. Like I always tell my patients, because I'm a nutritionist. Here in Brazil, it's like a university, 5 years, almost like as medicine. So what I tell my patients every day, I planted in my garden bananas and apples. Here in Rio de Janeiro, the climate in the summer, it's like so hot, the apples die always because they don't have the adequate amount of sunshine, the adequate amount of water, nutrients. You just have to identify the needs of the organism and provides them in the Goldilocks proportions. It's
Mm.
not, protein's good, right? But a lot of protein's also bad. Not just
Yeah.
small quantities, but more than you need is also malnutrition, as we say. Malnutrition is defined as too much, also, not just too little.
Yeah.
So like plants, of course we're not plants. We need movement. They are stationary. We draw our nutrients from the foods. They draw from the soil, from the sun, that doing photosynthesis. But still, the mind, the perspective is the same. Or you can survive, or you can thrive, or even die if you don't provide these biological needs. But nowadays, instead of sunshine, we're providing vitamin D capsules. Instead of sleeping well, we're like trying to use melatonin or like coffee in the morning. So it's like we're trying to substitute the healthful and natural biological needs that were produced by billions of years Instead, we're just using, like synthetic biological needs, trying to.
Yeah.
So
It's it's all gone a bit wrong somewhere, hasn't it? Let's break this down then for your average person who is completely new to fasting, or did you call it a water fast, water cleanse?
yeah, well, we call actually a hygienic fasting, because
Okay.
it follows the patterns of natural hygiene. And natural hygiene, we just, of course, we draw to the science as well, but we draw to observation of the natural mechanisms of the human being and the animals. Every animal on nature, when it's hurt, when it doesn't have any real appetite, not appetite for chocolate, hunger for a banana or a lettuce, when it doesn't have that, he stops eating until the body is regenerated. You break a
Mm,
bone, you just lose your appetite, you just lose your hunger, right? Because it hurts so much. So the repair mechanism needs you to slow down the digestion so you can repair. So we just say hygienic fasting, so we can differentiate from juice fasting, from cleanses, and of all those things. Doing the fast as nature intended during millions of years.
yeah. So you did 22 days or 20 days.
24 back then. I just did like almost a year ago a 39-day water fast in Tanglewood. It's a fasting center in Costa Rica. Although it's not
Right.
medically supervised, I recorded a documentary there.
Okay. So for I'd say for most people that would be quite extreme, wouldn't it? And what about if someone wanted to kind of give it a try? Could you do, like what are the benefits of perhaps doing like a couple of days or, a week perhaps?
We have a lot of research done by, because what happens, natural medicine, the real natural ones, not like capsules or natural pills from homeopathic medicine. It's like exercise, diet, sleep, and sunshine. Doesn't pay anybody. Like you cannot make lots of money selling bananas. Like that's why we don't see commercials of bananas on the 8 p.m. news. So fasting also doesn't have the amount of research it should have, so we can understand more about it. But Walter Longo is probably the main scientist in the world. He's a biologist, really famous for it, for studying fasting, and he has proved a lot of stuff in a lot of different diseases. And he also created what he calls fasting mimicking diets. That is like he's actually making it public to oncologists, to a lot of kind of specialized medicine, so he can help people out without having to fast completely, right? So I don't think the FMD it's the best fasting, get the best results, but just reducing a lot of the amount of calories and making them plant-based, because these phytonutrients also helps to turn on these longevity genes, as we call these repairing mechanisms. So because he makes plant-based and he cuts calories a lot, the body already enters in autophagy, as we call, not that much, because it's like a seesaw. The less you eat, the more he repairs. The more you eat, the less he repairs.
Mm,
So we know that a lot of protein intake, a lot of calorie intake inhibits autophagy, inhibits apoptosis. That's the programmed cell death. That a cell, when it's damaged or old, the organism understands and just kills it. But if you are eating a lot, that is inhibiting the killing senescent cells, as we call the old cells that starts producing inflammation in the place they are, and they should be removed from there because they're not useful anymore. So a 2 day water fast would be already a lot, like even 1 day water fast, even intermittent fasting. What I do in my daily life, I just eat 6 hours per day. It's a fasting window of 18 hours, eating window of 6 hours. Already that has been proved. Yeah, Sachin Panda, all the fasting scientists and the chronobiology scientists, chrononutrition, they talk about like 8, 16, 8. You know, that's more proven, but I feel better with 18.6. So it what I tell people, because I have a book on fasting, probably the most up to date fasting book in the world, and the only scientific fasting book written in Portuguese, as far as I know. So the book sells a lot, and I have like three fasting documentaries in my YouTube channel. That one of them has reached 1,500,000 views. So a lot of people come to me because they want to hear something and they just think about fasting. But as I say to them every time, it's what you do every day. It's not the
Mm.
30-day water fast that's going to make a lot of difference. But if I did already a lot of fast these 16 years that I've been a frugivore, a natural hygienist. But the most important part is the 340 other days of the year that you are eating and living. If you are eating and living wrong, 20-day water fast, that's too radical for most people. It's it will be you're going to raise a lot of the benefits in a short time.
Yeah.
The most important part is what you do every day. It's not the fast, I think.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. So we can't just do a little fast and then go back to the vegan burgers. So,
A
what
lot of
sort
people do that. A lot of people do that.
what sort of thing do you eat then? So what hours, what time do you start eating and finish eating, and what's your typical day's kind of diet like?
Nice. Natural hygienist back then was already talking about eating with the sun, eating with the hours of the sun. So when the sun is up in the skies around noon, it's when we feel the most hunger. And when the sun is coming down around 5 p.m., is when we feel hungry again. So if you go back to Socrates, for example, the old Greeks philosophers were already talking about civilizations that eat more than twice a day are barbarians. If we
Mm.
go back to France, the the word for breakfast in French is petit déjeuner. Petit déjeuner was only invented for like 300 years or something like that. So the
Mm.
breakfast that we are actually used to, it's pretty recently. So I only eat, I'm still fasting, and here's almost noon. So when we finish the interview, I'm going to break my fast. And then, I take a little bit of siesta because we have a lot of scientific data about it. Harvard made a study on the Greeks when they tried to stop the siesta around 2007, and they show an increase in heart disease by 38% just by stopping their siesta habit. This
Wow.
siesta it means the 6th hour in Latin. So after 6 hours of being awake, you just sleep a little bit. You just take a nap, a small rest. It makes a lot of a difference. There's a lot of research coming out more and more to support, because there's a drop in basal cortisol exactly at noon. So it means that we have to take a break. So I just take a break afterwards and then resume like work, etc. I usually exercise before breaking my fast, and today I'm going to exercise in the afternoon, but I'm going to exercise before dinner. So I plan to dinner around 5 p.m., 5:30. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. So what would you have for your breakfast and your dinner?
It's pretty simple. What you have to understand. Imagine that you are in a forest. You were born naked with only your own physiological and anatomical tools. Nature has made each kind of animal with its own biological tools. So, for example, for a bird, they're called by our biology granivores. What is a granivore? An animal that has a beak to collect small quinoa seeds or grain seeds, like rice seeds. Imagine collecting, quinoa seeds with your opposable thumbs. It's quite hard, right? And after you collect it, it's tasteless. It's hard.
Yeah.
So what the bird does, he has a pouch where he throws the grain inside of the pouch, and with the water in there, he sprouts the grains and he can eat it. But
Ah.
yeah, yeah. So pigs, for example,
Fascinating.
when we start to understanding the biology behind it, we understand what we actually did. Before getting there, I just have to, contextualize. We are anthropoid primates because of biology. Our biology classifies us as anthropoid primates. People don't like to be called primates or monkeys or anything like that, but we are animals. Or we are animals, or we are plants, or we are fungi, or we are monera. We can be seaweeds, we can be mushrooms, we can be vegetables, or we are animals. Because, like people always want to classify human beings as completely different from our biology. So, until they create a new realm for us, we're still animals. So if we're animals, we look a lot like anthropoid primates, and we share 99% of their DNA. And they are called frugivores. Why they're called frugivores? Because for them, the only thing that they can eat in their natural state, in their natural habitat, is fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Yes, chimps kill other animals once a month and they eat meat once a month, but it's only the chimps and once a month. You cannot classify an animal as omnivore if it eats fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and meat once a month. And even the younglings don't eat meat at all until they're grown up, and females rarely get meat because it's when males are trying to exchange for sex. So
Right.
it's not like they're eating a lot of meat like us, like usual human universe that eats. Like I grew up eating at breakfast, at the first lunch, at before lunch, and then at lunch, and then the midday lunch, and then the supper, and then dinner. We eat like 5 times a day animal products. So they're frugivores, and there's no doubt about it. You know, so there's a lot of biological adaptations for each animal to eat what it is supposed to eat. For example, anthropoid primates have opposable thumbs, so we can climb trees. We can hold a banana in our hands and easily peel. And the banana doesn't have to be seasoned because the
Mm.
season's already there. The sugary taste that we can feel on the tip of our tongues because our DNA is composed that way to feel the sugar as the primarily component of the diet. Because we have been eating fruits and vegetables for 150 million of years of primate evolution, around
Mm.
40 million to 150 million. It's the estimate. But, you know, so the color of the fruit attracts us. The smell of the fruit attracts us. And when you eat it, it's tasty and it's easy to digest. But if you go, for example, for complex carbs, yams, how do you know that there's a yam under the earth? And after you pick it, the skin is so ugly, and after you peel it, it's still hard and white and no juicy, no flavorful, no water running drip. So it's impossible to eat it. But there was an ice age called the Urn glaciation that happened 100,000 years ago, and it changed everything because with the ice age, fruits and vegetables didn't grow. So human beings have to find a way to survive the ice age. So we learned that through cooking, we could eat rice, beans, potatoes, and anything that we wanted, meat. So that's why even the Greek mythology called that uh, the fall from paradise, the fall from the golden era. They call the
Mm.
golden era because no human beings ate animals. It was everything free from treacherous treachery. It was they're naive. They were happy and living in a paradise, and then came Prometheus, the titan of fire that came with the fire and the meat to human beings. And then Zeus, the main god, to cast a curse upon human beings because they were eating meat and using fire. He opened the Pandora box with everything that's bad in the earth. That's the Greek mythology. But if we look at science, geology suggests that there was actually an ice age happening because the Greeks were saying about cold winds that came and took man out of the paradise. But the geology proves that there was an ice age 100,000 years ago. And this ice age ended 13,000 years ago, exactly when we started the Neolithical period, when we understood that we could plant seeds and they were could be stored for like a year. So we had steady supply of food instead of being hunter gatherers being everywhere. We're way more gatherers than hunters because people think that it was the opposite, but still. So it was actually this ice age that we start cooking. Because of it, it was for survival, not for biological needs. Can we stop 1 second so I can pee?
Yeah, of
Frugi,
course.
I drank like 3 coconut waters, like it's a lot of water in the diet.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. I'll shut my
Thank you.
dogs. My...
I was like, 1 second.
Okay, see you in a sec.
Be right back. I'm back.
Brilliant.
It-
One
that,
downside, I guess.
that's one of the issues with the diet. You eat so much watery foods that the peeing is pretty frequently you know
Brilliant. So, I mean, that is, yeah, absolutely fascinating. All this, history and science that you're sort of telling us about. What what would you eat then for dinner, for example?
so usually lunch, it's like 2 kilos of fruit in average, maybe even more if it's watermelon because it has less calories in it. And maybe I can eat a few nuts and seeds or a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of mushrooms, but it's primarily fruit. And dinner, it's primarily vegetables. But for sure, I can eat some fresh peas out of the pods or fresh beans. There's a lot of things that we can talk about it. But the majority of a frugivore diet, even for the anthropoid primates living in the jungles, are fruits, vegetables, a little bit of nuts and seeds here and there.
So
So
if you ate
I,
mushrooms, you'd eat them raw.
I eat them raw. There was actually scientific ideas. It was not scientific at all, but there was scientific ideas suggesting they were poisonous. But there's new articles suggesting they are not poisonous raw. And I have been eating them for 16 years and I haven't died yet. So I think so I'm kidding. I see a lot of people eating raw mushrooms, and I never saw any issue whatsoever. But what we have to understand that a lot of people think, oh, I have to cook it because takes out some anti nutrient or maybe some toxic substance. But cooking actually cause what we call in science the Maillard reaction end products are the cooked food toxins as I simplify them. They are called there's more than 400 of them. one of the most studied of them is the AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And cooked food toxins are correlated with cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases. If you have high levels of AGEs in your blood, you can have, after 40 years of age, you can have brain atrophy of 6% per year. So AGEs are not, advanced glycation and drugs is not something you want to, play with it. It damages your collagen, it damages your brain, it damages your vascular system, it damages your heart. Your AGEs are even found in cancer tissues, more concentrated there. So it's not something that like hippie raw vegans are saying that don't cook the food. There's a lot of science to back it up,
Yeah.
but as everybody cooks and burns their own food, because for me it's not cooking, it's burning. If you throw out beans in a pan and leave there for half an hour, burning. Try to do the same thing with your hand and see how your hand comes out of it. It's like obvious. Besides the loss of nutrients that is really well documented, even small amounts of cooking can damage 30% of every kind of vitamin and mineral. And we always want more nutrients, not less nutrients, because we there's a scientist, really famous American scientist called Bruce Ames. He suggested the triad theory, that the body can function with less than optimal micronutrients, but he does that in expense of longevity and health span, as we call, like healthy years of life, you know because it's not just to be alive. You need, it's not just about lifespan, but health span, as we call in science. So um the diet is only what I eat. To make it simpler, I eat what I can eat with my own hands without having to cook it, season it, process it. You can eat a cashew nut with your hand. You can eat like a raw Brazil nut with your hand, for sure. So I can eat it. I can eat a banana with my hand. I can eat it. I can eat lettuce, tomato, broccoli. Yeah, I can eat it. Mushroom. So it's pretty simple. If you have to process, you have to cook it, you have to season it. It's just other animals' food. For example, pigs can eat raw potatoes.
Mm,
Their nostrils are 100 times stronger than ours are. So
yeah.
they can sniff the tubers under the earth. They can actually what's the name for it? With their paws, they can excavate,
Yeah. Yeah. Because they
dig,
dig. They
dig,
dig.
dig,
Yeah.
dig. They can dig the tubers, and also they secrete amylase, the salivary and digestive amylase. That's the enzyme to break out down starch. So you throw them a sweet potato raw, and they can eat it, and they probably have the DNA to taste the complex carbs, but
Mm,
we can't. So it's pretty quite simple. uh, and every animal has a lot. It's like hundreds, thousands of biological adaptations. For example, carnivores, they can biosynthesize vitamin C. Meat hasn't had vitamin C for millions of years. So they need to make it inside of that. We don't have that gene because
mm,
our food comes with a lot of vitamin C. Why wasting energy producing vitamin C when there's a plenty in our own food?
mm.
So there's a lot of things we could talk about, but just not to, make it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I think you're going to have to come back on for a part two because yeah, like you said, there's so much to cover and there's so many questions I want to ask you. But yeah, it might turn into a 3 hour podcast otherwise. But thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much, Eduardo. It's been
My pleasure.
fascinating, and I'd
Of course.
encourage anyone listening who's interested in this. It's really interesting to me. I mean, it's something that I've been interested in for a while, and I have done like short water fasts and things like that. And
Oh, nice.
I am interested in looking into sort of the raw vegan side of things a bit more. But as a busy mum, a working mum, it's not always that easy to kind of undertake with different kind of people in the house following different diets and things. But yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to go and check out your books and your website. So I'll put those in the show notes for everyone to have a look at.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I run retreats in Brazil. I have like a YouTube channel. Also, I'm creating the YouTube channel in English. It's still pretty small, but in Portuguese, there's usually subtitles for every video, but it's already almost 400,000. And I always use scientific articles to back it up. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying this. It's like someone from, publishing a research in a top medical journal, you know, peer reviewed, as we say. So it's all backed it up. I have books. I attend patients. I run retreats here in my like a farm in Brazil, and also I have online courses. But I'm taking all the content to English now, so I can spread the word more.
Yeah. Brilliant. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, for sure. But I always save some time for to eat right, to sleep early, to exercise, and to get some sunshine. That's non-negotiable for me. I work the whole day, but my health is my priority.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in the UK, so there's not much hope of the sunshine, but I'll try and stick to the rest.
That's